Ben Shapiro gets it wrong once again. And Ben has dropped the ball quite a bit in recent years. And with it, when I think of this, immediately the first thing that comes to mind was some of his critiques of Trump, or especially his handling of what was going on through COVID and his commentary surrounding it. Ben Shapiro is someone who was actively advocating for masking, mandates, lockdowns. He was promoting the jab, and with it, he was also lambasting people who weren't willing to go through with the mandates of what Big Pharma was demanding and what government was subjecting you to, which is tyranny. So Ben Shapiro actively promoting tyranny. And why is that? Why is it that someone as smart as Ben Shapiro would do that? It's because it's much easier to train a smart dog than a dumb dog. And Ben Shapiro is absolutely smart. Many people who disagree with him will sit there and consistently talk about the fact of, oh, he's just an idiot, he's just a fool. And no, he's absolutely brilliant. Undoubtedly, Ben's mind is moving at a mile a minute, and with it, he can speak just as it does. He speaks like a machine gun, and something people have to realize is Ben is actually wasted on politics. He is much better at analyzing biblical scripture. He's much better at analyzing things like cultural analysis rather than just strictly focusing on foreign policy and politics. That is not his wheelhouse, and that is truly not where he excels and where his mind really hits its stride. I would argue if you want to go see this, you need to go check Ben analyzing scripture, and that is something where he's actually quite impressive. Far more than he ever is in the political landscape because of the way he's able to actually dive into it. And one thing we have to cover, and I mean, this is important. Why is it that people call Ben Shapiro stupid? What examples do they use, and why do they use them? Well, they use them because they're convenient and because it is such an easy win. It's like, oh, well, he only debates college students. Yeah, if Ben Shapiro is only debating college students who are 17, 18 years old, who don't even know their gender, and with it, they don't even understand the historical context of many of the points that they're rattling off because they're just making arguments that are coming from talking points that they read on social media and bleeding them out like sheep, well, it's not that impressive when you're one-upping these children. What would be impressive if you were to debate someone like Scott Horton, Max Blumenthal, Norman Finkelstein on the issue of Israel-Palestine, much like he said he would on the Joe Rogan Experience years ago, saying he would debate absolutely anyone on this topic. But now once we see this major flare-up, Ben has completely abandoned these challenges from so many people. And with it, we can see that this is one reason people are saying that Ben Shapiro simply isn't that impressive. And while he has an impressive mind, I wonder if he actually has the capability to be an impressive debater. And with it, let's see if he can actually understand the nature of why American conservatism is being challenged to the degree that it has. Because what you have to realize, Ben, is that American conservatism was a failed system. And I know that might be hard for some to hear, but here's the deal. You didn't even conserve the women's restroom. And with it, Mr. Conservative Robert Taft didn't even support NATO. And what do we see? We see the head of the conservative movement, Bill Buckley, stating that, oh, well, we have to have a totalitarian bureaucracy within our shores to fight the totalitarian bureaucracy abroad. And what was that totalitarian bureaucracy abroad? It was the Soviet Union. And the Soviet Union no longer exists. So why is it that we must still argue for the merits of someone like Bill Buckley, who has clearly led us to the point which where we are now, which the number one fight in the conservative landscape is that of the trans movement, and with it, you couldn't even conserve the women's restroom. So maybe it's time to hold your generals accountable. So I was going through and I was looking for clips of stuff of Ben Shapiro, and I will admit, I just had to start with this meme after the intro solely because it's so relevant. Like I said, he's just only talking to college students. And I get it's because Ben goes to university campuses and he talks to a lot of different students. But with it, he's only willing to actually debate them, these kids who know little to nothing. And anyone who can actually, right now, and self analyze, look back on themselves when they were 18. If you think you weren't an idiot when you were 18, I'm sorry, but you don't have any ability to look inward. We were all fucking morons. There's no other way to put it. It's just simple. That's how it was. We were all fools. In our own way, one way or another, it is simply how it is. And the fact that Ben Shapiro is only willing to debate these people only bolsters this point that people are like, well, realistically, you only talk to college students. And I just want to start with this image and then we'll throw it into Ben Shapiro talking about why facts don't care about your feelings. But it's Scott Horton says, debate me. I'm very busy. Dave Smith, debate me? You're not worth it. Debate me? Sure. And it's just a college student, some fat chick who doesn't know anything about anything because she's just some woke person who's been sitting there reading the talking points that have been disseminated on social media because she's sitting there in the purity spiral and she's got to make sure she's using the right catchphrases. That way everyone knows she's on the right team and that she's up with the current jargon. And these are the people that Ben Shapiro consistently debates. I'd really love to see him debate someone of actual intellectual might because, man, that would actually be worth seeing. Let's go ahead and throw it into this clip.
Do you feel that a lot of your speech could incite the same kind of violence?
I mean, you heard my speech tonight. Do you feel that my speech could incite violence?
Well,
I mean that seriously. That's an honest question.
I know you're asking honestly. I feel that for me, as an individual, it isn't, but I could see how a lot of your points I really disagreed with. I literally have a list of
and that's
questions
fine. I mean, that's
you.
the good part, right? Where we disagree and we can have a conversation.
I just was wondering in terms of, and what I mean by inciting violence is encouraging the same people who believe in like your transphobic beliefs, even that like homophobia is a sin based on your religious beliefs. Do you believe that because of what you say, you can encourage a lot of people to act on those beliefs?
So I have a very strong standard with regard to incitement, and I'm very consistent about this. If I'm not telling somebody to commit violence, I am not inciting them to violence. I've held the standard for Barack Obama when he was saying anti-police things, and then somebody went and shot up some police officers in Dallas. I said that's not Barack Obama's fault. When a Bernie Sanders supporter went and shot up a congressional baseball game, I said that's not Bernie Sanders' fault because Bernie Sanders wasn't calling for that. Political debate requires that you talk to people and people take your words as what they mean, not as an excuse to go and do violence. I've never called for violence, nor would I. As far as the idea that my words are some sort of attack, a violent attack, for example, on folks who are transgender, my view,
not saying
I know, but
attack.
I'm responding to the people who are not you who might say that. Okay. So the idea that I am transphobic, for example, this is a bizarre kind of attack in the sense that I don't know that I've ever exhibited phobia of trans people. I'm not afraid of trans people.
Well, transphobia is more along the lines of prejudice against the trans.
So I actually think that your first characterization was right. I think that transphobia is really disagreement with the basic principle that the trans community is trying to purvey, which is that people's sex is malleable, that people can move from male to female, and that it is my job, objectively, to now call them the name they wish to be called, and to teach my children that men can be women and women can be men. I fundamentally disagree with that point. Now, with that said, is everybody in the United States entitled to the same rights? Of course, but your right does not extend to forcing me to call you what you want me to call you. That's not the way this works. That violates my freedom of speech. So in interpersonal relationships, if I were out to dinner with a trans person, would I make a point of noting their proper biological sex? No, because that would be impolite. When I'm talking about the general principle of is a man a woman or is a woman a man, the answer is I will say that a man is a man and a woman is a woman and a he is a he and a she is a she. And if I'm in a public debate with somebody, I will say the same thing.
And there you have it, the example of, well, Ben Shapiro going toe-to-toe with a child. Granted, they're roughly the same stature. But nonetheless, what I find so fascinating about this and all of this is that Ben Shapiro is dealing with people who are working on an ideological framework. The woke totalitarians, as people akin to Jordan Peterson call it. And what do we have here? We have someone like Ben Shapiro who's openly attacking these people who are using identity politics. And then when it comes down to it, every single time Israel comes into the conversation, Ben Shapiro recedes back to his identity politics, and he goes right into that of his Jewish identity, and that is the entire framework of all of his arguments. And with it, you can see that many of the times these people, if they didn't have double standards, they wouldn't have any. And it's something just to always keep in mind that when you're dealing with people within the political class, or you're dealing with people who are supposed to be bastions of nobility and truth, even those who are supposed to be held up to a higher standard will always eventually falter. So you must make sure that you are always being critical about how you're being presented information, because with it, you can see that one quick instance, one flip of the switch, and these people will change their tune instantaneously. And here we have this clip of Ben Shapiro versus Ben Shapiro, and on one side he's arguing from the ideological framework of that of his Jewish identity and sinking into identity politics, and on the other he's arguing against exactly that. Isn't that just fascinating? It's almost like all you need is one thing to be the catalyst that makes you become the authoritarian. And with it, that's something people have to realize, is that anyone, even you, can become the guard. Not everyone was always the victim. There were so many more people who were those who were just passively allowing those things to happen in society. And with it, given the right things that activated them, it pushed them into that mindset that allowed them to become that person. And something that I really want Ben Shapiro to internalize, which he won't, is the fact is that at this point, with how you're arguing when it comes to the nature of sinking into your own Jewish identity, with your own framework of identity politics, you're doing something that you chastised the left for years and years and years. And at that point, Are you no better? One thing we also have to address is the fact that Ben Shapiro is emotionally activated because he is in fear of Jewish people being persecuted. He's in fear of them being slaughtered. And with it, when he says this, he means it. He really doesn't want innocent people to be harmed. But what it really comes down to is every single time it turns out to be innocent Palestinians that are harmed, Ben Shapiro just seems to kind of sidestep the issue and avoid it because he'd rather not talk about it because that muddies the waters. Let's go ahead and get into this clip.
Now, we've been seeing these massive marches all over the United States in favor of Hamas. If that doesn't scare the hell out of Jews, I'm not sure exactly what will. These campuses, which are supposed places of safety and openness and diversity, well, when it comes to Jewish students feeling, just a little threatened by people who are now defending mass murder of Jews, and then, of course, there's nothing to be done. Are these people who are marching in favor of Hamas that you would want working for your company? On campuses across the nation, Jews have been surrounded. Jews are being threatened all over the world, but we got to make sure that the people who join the threats, those are the people who are protected. If they are not citizens and they support Hamas, they should be deported. These folks don't think like you. They don't think like you. In the United Kingdom, Jewish students are now afraid to go to class. I know. You are in your dorm and you're ensconced there and you feel so comfortable with all your friends who tell you that you're just a great person and all your beliefs are exactly right. The last thing you want is somebody invading your campus and saying things that you disagree with, because that's just tyrannical and awful. You shouldn't have to feel like you're wrong ever. You should always feel like you're right. Well, toughen up, sweetheart. Bottom line is that it's time for you to learn that there are lots of differing opinions. The discussion is good for you. It makes your views stronger. It makes your views more durable. It is that exchange of ideas that actually makes an intellectual community worth having.
Well, we know Ben Shapiro is about to get slapped again. So all of these things he's just said are absolutely true, which is why Ben Shapiro should go debate Scott Horton, Max Blumenthal, Norman Finkelstein, an expert on the Israel-Palestine conflict. He should talk to someone like Gabor Mate, whose family survived the persecution of what happened to the Jews in Hungary. These are the people he should talk to. But he won't, because as I've said, it muddies the water and it can't give Ben Shapiro the exact clear vision that he wants to present about the nobility of the state of Israel.
If you're not willing to engage in that intellectual community, you're in the wrong place. If you want a safe space, we can find a padded cell for you somewhere. If you want life to just be a giant teddy bear, go back to being a child. But if you want to be an adult in the United States of America, you're going to have to deal with the fact that there are people who disagree, and that's a good thing to discuss. There are only one group of people that want safe spaces so that they never have to hear from anybody of a different ideology or political persuasion. Those people are called fascists. Okay, you've got a bunch of fascists, damn fascists on this campus, who are trying to shut down political debate and trying to cloister themselves in this little cocoon of stupidity so they don't have to debate anyone or think about issues outside their kin so that they can feel comfortable. Guess what? Life isn't about feeling comfortable. Life is about bettering yourself. Get off your ass, you stupid pansies.
You got knocked the fuck out, man!
Well, Ben got pieced up there by the Three Stooges. Man, also, I love the Three Stooges, so this video just goes up a tier in my book solely based on the fact that that's the footage that they used. But yeah, here we can see arguing out of both sides of his mouth, and it's because he's been activated by ideological frameworks in one, and in the other, he's arguing against it because the people in his opposition are those who have been activated by it. And we can see that ideology is always something that gets thrown into the front lines when people are being activated by what? Emotion. And this is why propaganda is so important, because if we can propagandize you into a hyper-emotional state, we can get you to support anything. Look at what happened after 9/11 with the Patriot Act. Look at what happened with the wars that came after. Look at what happened with the response to COVID. The fact is, if we can get you into a state of fear, we can give you any bit of reason to allow us to take the inch and run to the mile. And with it, they'll drop the goalpost and then shame you for asking questions about why is it that they just took the inch and ran the mile. I'm going to go ahead and end it there. Ben Shapiro talking out of both sides of his mouth, and with it, he's an incredibly intelligent person, and with it, that's why it's going to be so much harder to rationalize to him why he's got this wrong. Because he can take his emotional standpoint and work his way backwards logically, and then deliver you why he's worked himself to this place initially, and he can explain it as if he initially started from his presumption of no emotional investment, and then wish that with that he built upon it, and then through this massive logical network, it's come to the fact that he's just emotionally intertwined. But as Jonathan Haidt has talked about, this simply isn't how we make decisions, and this isn't how people view politics. People have an emotional reaction, a visceral one, and with it, they will logically rationalize every single web that is connected to it so that they can build their structural housing around that. Thank you for watching if you got this far. Never fall to ideological frameworks and subversion. Go ahead and realize that you yourself are capable of being the guard just like you are capable of being the one within the cell. Stay lovely, stay great. Thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. Tell me where I'm wrong in the comment section down below. Ben Shapiro is wrong here. He's not an idiot. Don't fall for all that nonsense. But nonetheless, critique him where he deserves it. Peace out.